Let's be honest, whatever's happening here looks broken. I am the slot monster, and what you're seeing right now is the Recoup package based around this item, the Sacrosanctum Corvus Mantle, which is one of my favourite items that I've played around with a lot. It has a very low play rate, for some pretty good reasons, but I'm here to make the case that this thing can be a really strong secret tech in the right situation. I also had an idea with arguably the worst Ascendancy, Acolyte of Cheula. I wanted to see if damage taken to darkness triggered Recoup healing. And guess what? It did. Absolutely beautiful. You better believe that I'll be talking about my ideas on that, but first we need to look at the item itself. This item has some really good stats on it, with its biggest downside being its lack of raw defenses, but as usual the power of this unique is in its special effect. Damage taken recouped to life is also recouped as energy shield. To explain how what you're seeing is possible, the in-game description for Recoup is as follows. When you take damage from a hit, Recoup causes you to recover an amount of the stated resource equal to a percentage of the damage you took over 8 seconds. It's important to note that Recoup doesn't care about which resource took the damage, it only cares about the size of the hit. Each instance of hit damage will create its own independent Recoup heal, which means when you're taking loads of hits like this, you're stacking dozens or even hundreds of separate healing effects at once. Recoup only offers recovery, however, so you do actually need to increase your effective hit pool, and while armor can be quite good for this, and there are a few armor based Recoup builds out there, Energy Shield is easily the most natural choice, especially considering where the majority of Recoup nodes are on the tree. This item is basically core if you want to utilize Recoup on an Energy Shield build. It's also interesting to note that with this item you gain Energy Shield Recoup, but you don't actually lose your initial life Recoup, so you're getting your total Recoup amount to your life and your Energy Shield every time, based upon the hit damage taken. However, since you always take damage to your Energy Shield before life, you can't actually utilize any of this life healing until your Energy Shield is entirely depleted, which in most cases would mean you're dangerously close to dying. This is where the Atziri's Disdain Gold Circlet and the Heavy Buffer Notable come into play. Together, these redirect 15% of your damage taken straight to your life pool, so your Energy Shield only takes 85% of the damage, but your Recoup will still heal you for the damage of the entire hit. Recovery will also multiply your total Recoup, so it's a really good idea to initially take the Soul Bloom Notable, and then later anoint it, as the small nodes leading up to it give you no value in this build. Finally, there are a bunch of Recoup notables across the passive tree, and none of these are explicitly core, but you will want to take a bunch of them to get your Recoup returns high enough to sustain you. The way that I see it, there are 3 types of builds that utilize this item. Number 1 is niche builds that do self-hit damage. For example, Skuld's Bridle. Number 2 is builds that minimally invest in Recoup and don't solely rely on it. And number 3 is the Energy Shield Recoup Recovery package, which is what we're mostly going to be focusing on in this video. You may have noticed though that this package is quite a lot of investment, both in important gear slots and passive tree points, and that is ultimately the downside of this package that makes it rarely used. It costs a lot of passive points and your helm and chest slot, which are the best slots to get loads of Energy Shield. So the question is, when is this worth using over just standard Energy Shield regen? And I think the answer to that is damage over time builds. Poison, Bleed, Ignite, and probably my favourite skill in this game, Contagion. Absolutely love this package if you're rapidly moving through maps with monsters wailing on you that aren't dying instantly. The upside to this package is it essentially grants you immortality, as long as you can solve 3 problems with it. The way to solve these problems are increasing your effective max health so you can't get one shot, increasing your healing speed so you can't get burst down before the recoup healing kicks in, and finally, dealing with chaos damage. The reason that chaos damage is a threat is because not only does it do double damage to energy shield, but also the notables taut flesh and loose flesh are commonly taken, meaning you take more damage from this damage type and heal less from it. You also can't take CI like other energy shield builds might, because this package utilizes the life pool. Many of these builds choose to counteract this chaos weakness by using Forsaken Bangle Amethyst Charm, which makes you nearly impervious to chaos damage while it's up. But it is inconsistent, and if you get caught without charges, you'll probably die. That's why I think Ascendancy choice is really important to fill these gaps. If you look at the usage rates on Sacrosanctum, you'll see some interesting stats on what those Ascendancies are. I want to start by looking at the Infernalist, because the Infernalist falls into the self-damage category we talked about earlier. And while I'd love to cover this build in depth, that's outside the scope of this video, as it's honestly very complex and deserving of an entire video on its own. It essentially uses the Pyromantic Pact passive to have infinite mana with cast on crit, and mitigates the self-damage with Recoup, which also gives it recovery to maintain the self-damage from demon form. You can also pair it with Skull's Bridle. Very cool. If you didn't follow any of that, that's fine. This is an extremely technical, expensive, and precise endgame build, and is completely unlike any of the rest. Then you have the Oracle and the Shaman, and while I think they are overrepresented for being the new classes, these builds seem to mostly be used to bolster the healing that you get from Zealot's Oath and Regen. Oracle with the Entwined Realities node is able to pick up many of the good Recoup notables for only a few points, which makes the investment a lot lower to get many of the high value nodes, while still having many points left over to bolster other sources of recovery. Also, Wolfpack with the Lineage support gem Ramira's Requital is a cool interaction. So with those Ascendancies removed, you can see the regular defensive package Recoup users are just mostly playing Chronomancer, which is unsurprising to me because Chronomancer is known as the Recoup class. That's because Chronomancer has a very strong node in the Rapid River, which sets the base duration of Recoup to 4 seconds instead of the baseline 8. Now don't get me wrong, this is a very strong node, because it literally halves the time it takes for your healing from each hit taken to be applied, which if you look at the list of weaknesses from before, massively helps with number 2 on this list. However, it offers very little to the other categories, so while it is a solid and viable choice, I think there are actually 2 other Ascendancies that can potentially do it better. The Ritualist is one of those. The Ritualist has this hardly used node called Mind Phylacteries, and everyone says it's bad, but I will die on the hill that this node is awesome. In the case of Sacrosanctum Recoup, if you have Mind Phylacteries, sprinkle in some mana Recoup to offset the mana cost, then you'll have infinite Forsaken Bangle, which takes chaos damage from your scariest damage type to the one you are most happy to see. Not only that, you still have 2 more charm slots to work with, so you can be immune to slows and also stunned. Maybe there's even a hybrid energy shield armor build here with the 4 Utopia charm. After getting this, you still have 4 points left over, so the 3rd ring that Ritualist is known for is very good, because you can then get another life roll ring giving you even more max health to work with, and then you can increase all of those life rolls by 25%, which gives you even more energy shield from Atziri's Disdain. Finally, one of your major slots for Recoup is actually your Amulet slot, giving up to 32%, so increasing this by 25% is just a free 8% Recoup, on top of the other stats you get, which is just a nice bonus. If you look at the 3 problems that you're trying to solve with Recoup, Ritualist gives a great bonus to 1 and 3, but remember, more max health also gives you more time for the Recoup to start working, so it kind of actually handles every weakness of Recoup, and has some other great perks to boot. And finally, what you've all been waiting for, my Acolyte of Chayula. I've wanted to make an Acolyte of Chayula Darkness build work for so long, but I realized it needed to be in a build that desperately needed max health, or it's absolutely not worth giving up the spirit. Also, since it scales with chaos resistance, it can't be in a CI build, and ideally it's in a build that desperately needs chaos resistance, which this is. And since spirit is usually used for AoE, it would probably need to be a build that used contagion, which is perfect for this defensive package because you probably have to tank a lot of damage while enemies rot. My test from earlier in the video showing that damage taken to darkness triggered recoup healing is great, because it means that anytime your darkness is actually breached, you will already have healing rolling on your energy shield the instant you start taking damage to it. If you take a look at our list from earlier, it counteracts every single weakness of us running Recoup, paired with it working with the ideal skill. I'm actually planning on making an entire video around this build idea. Overall, Recoup is a great defensive package, and it's one of the few defensive setups that can make you immortal whilst AFK, with its biggest downside being its heavy investment, which frankly most builds don't need to do. For the builds it synergizes with, however, it can be so strong it makes them look broken. I hope you enjoyed my episode of Secret Tech. If you want to see my upcoming adventures playing with my Darkness Acolyte of Chayula, or just other off-meta ideas, then it would be super awesome if you could give me a follow. Also, like the video, but only if you actually like the video, because it really helps me figure out what works and what doesn't. I also just really want to thank everyone for the support I've received thus far. It honestly has been so much more than what I would have expected. And yeah, just thank you so much to everyone who has given me all these likes and all of these wonderful comments. I really appreciate you guys, and I really appreciate this awesome community. Thanks for watching. Slot Monster out.